We are live. Welcome everyone to NCVLI's Rise, Rights in Action, the difference a lawyer can make. This is a live series to create awareness of victims' rights, highlight the legal work of our Rise clinics, and discuss how NCVLI supports attorneys across the country as we fight for victims to ensure that they have a voice in justice. So welcome. Thank you for joining us. We're going to be here live on the third Wednesday of each month. We're going to be speaking to our legal partners across the country, just to highlight the great work that they're doing, engaging, elevating, enforcing, and activating victims' rights. The National Crime Victim Law Institute fields thousands of technical assistance requests annually, and we encourage everyone to seek out the expertise of our organization anytime that you're facing a challenge or a concern relating to asserting or enforcing victims' rights. So this month, we're really excited. We're going to Arizona. We have Rob Swineford with us from the Arizona Voice for Crime Victims. So welcome, Rob. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about your organization and the legal work that you do, and what does your clinic offer?
Sure. So I'm here with Arizona Voice for Crime Victims, and we were started back in 1996 after the state had passed through a ballot initiative, our Victims' Bill of Rights. Our clinic, then began at Arizona State University, and we have been providing pro bono legal representation and social services to victims throughout the state of Arizona, whether it's in misdemeanor court at the city or county level, the Superior Court, the appellate courts, or the state Supreme Court, as well as federal courts. Will appear in front of the Executive Board of Clemency and in some of the tribal courts throughout the state. And our goal is essentially to help enforce victims' rights and to litigate issues as they come out through each of the various levels. And that's essentially what we've done here, and that's what we've been doing this entire time.
Wonderful. And so many of us look to Arizona as like the pinnacle of victims' rights. You've had, the first state with the strongest constitutional rights, but even you guys still face challenges every day, right?
Exactly. You're exactly right. I mean, even though it happens, we may not be fighting some of the same battles that are being fought in some of the states without the history that we have, but enough things come up to keep us busy.
So tell us a little bit about a recent case or an issue that you've helped navigate for a client.
Sure. We had a case that is tied into COVID, as well as some of the technological advances that have happened over the last few decades. Notably, what happened was as the pandemic hit, courts were essentially stopping trials, but the few courts that were able to have trials had to make adjustments. And what we've seen in various courtrooms throughout the state have been that rather than having the entire jury in a jury box, what they've done is spread the jurors out throughout the courtroom and including into the well of the courtroom, just so everyone can socially distance. But when that happened, it also limits the occupancy number of who can appear in court and just the total number of individuals. Well, in keeping with that, to comply with the right of a public trial for a defendant, we had a scenario where in an outlying county, one of the courts decided to stream the trial on YouTube. It wasn't necessarily something where it would be a Zoom link or a Microsoft Teams link. It was essentially just an open broadcast of the trial. Well, we were retained and brought on because of this specific issue, which was the fact that the nature of the charges, that they were involving a minor victim and that they were molestation and sexual conduct with a minor charges. This became a possible concern when the victim would have to testify at trial. When we came onto the case, what we were able to do was file a motion asking the court to, in effect, either close the courtroom or potentially just not stream the trial on YouTube. Part of the concern here was going to be that as soon as it's streamed online, anyone's able to either screen record, to make essentially a permanent record of the proceedings, which would be the minor victim testifying about the nature of the allegations. And even if it wasn't something as simple as just screen recording through the computer, it could be as simple as holding your phone up and just taking a picture of what's the image on a computer. And then once that happens, and once it's on the internet, it's there forever. So in fact, to advocate for our client, we filed a motion asking the court to not stream the case.
Excellent. And I mean, when you think about this, it's something I know the courts really tried to do everything in their power to kind of make courts operational during this time. But it's just, sometimes you don't think about the privacy issues or the trauma and the impact of that. So tell me about, what would it have done differently had the client not had you, right? Would the victim have been able to really fix this on their own or remedy this on their own? And what's the difference that a lawyer makes in a case like this?
I think here the biggest difference is that when it's a minor victim, or even if it's not necessarily a minor victim, someone who's not an attorney, like you said, they may not have the access or the ability or the wherewithal to be able to file a motion, to put forth legal arguments, to see what's been done in other jurisdictions, to look through the rules of criminal procedure, to have that knowledge, to make a cognizant legal argument to the court to explain the reasons why that this is not appropriate or that there are other alternative means, things like that.
So
But
incredibly important.
yeah.
So let's talk about NCVLI. Were there any legal resources that you used that were helpful, and how was NCVLI a resource to you during this case?
Well, aside from this, just the build up to it, NCVLI has been excellent in being able to staff issues, to start looking ahead, to realize that there were going to be issues that came up with COVID, whether it's a continuance, whether it's motions to modify release conditions. All of that prep work kind of came to a head here where we had this situation come up. We're able to reach out to NCVLI to see an example of, like I said, what had been done in another jurisdiction, something that someone who had already fought this battle, to be able to see kind of the framework, the organization, the outline on what they did in their pleadings, to be able to make that argument to the court. We were able to reach out, see an example of a brief that had been filed in Pennsylvania, a successful brief, and then use portions of that, kind of use the structure and see what they had done that was likely going to be helpful with making an argument in the county that we had here in Arizona. So that was certainly the most helpful thing, rather than the normal process of trying to search everyone to look for cases that had already been appealed up or decisions, but to see kind of what had been filed specifically at the trial court level, so that we were able to see that, make those arguments to the trial court judge, and get the result that we wanted.
I think that's the beauty of NCVLI, right? The whole focus is on victims' rights work. So that information is readily accessible and can be turned around so much faster than having to go in and do that research yourself. In this particular case, what did you learn, or do you think other jurisdictions could learn from what you did, whether it is impacting various laws or any other ways that someone can benefit from what you were able to do?
Well, I think specifically for a scenario like this, one of the examples would be to look at providing other alternative options for the court if they weren't necessarily going to grant the direct relief that you sought. And then additionally, to just look at some of the practical things that may play into your argument. Specifically here, one of the things that we were able to point out was that in every elevator or every stairwell, there was a warning to say, don't record the proceedings. When they were going on in the courtroom. But then additionally, for just a general perspective on what to do in making these arguments, it's a scenario where if you don't make the argument, if you don't make the objection, then you never know what's going to be the result. If you're not afraid to ask, then you can get the result that you would like. We've had this come up with other scenarios in Arizona where previously we were able to adjust the right to restitution for victims in Arizona so that there's no longer a restitution cap. But again, that was objecting and pushing back to something that had been case law for several decades here. So just in general, if another clinic is going to look at that, try to see what's been done in other jurisdictions and make the argument, because until you make that argument, you can't create good case law.
Yeah. No, and I think you hit it right on the nail. It's just asking, right? So often I think that victims' rights are not known enough that people feel empowered to say, this is my right, and I'm gonna not just see it on paper, but I'm gonna ask for this right to actually be played out properly in court. And that's what is incredible about attorneys like yourself and RISE clinics like yours, is that you have that ability and those resources. So would you recommend that other victim attorneys or advocates connect with NCVLI and or RISE clinics?
Absolutely. And I think part of the reason is just as an attorney, when you're starting out, or whether you're in a new area of law, or even if it's an area of law that you've been in, if it's a scenario that's unique, that hasn't come up and you haven't already seen play out, you may not know where to look, where to start looking, what other similarities that would exist in different aspects of the law. But NCVLI is great because most likely if it's happening in your state, it's probably happened somewhere else. If it hasn't happened somewhere else, it may have happened in a different area of law. So being able to reach out to have this network of individuals who have been practicing criminal law, but who have also done other things throughout the criminal justice process, it's been so beneficial to be able to have those resources to fall back on to see what alternative remedies exist and how to get those accomplished.
That makes sense. So where can people learn more about you? You're in Arizona. How can people access your resources, get involved? Are there any needs that you have as a clinic right now?
I think our website would probably be the best way for anyone to reach out to us. It can provide some background information and help people, get in contact with us so that we can do an intake and possibly retain them. It's ArizonaVoiceForCrimeVictims.org. Aside from that, just either reaching out to us via email or calling our main office line, and then we'll be able to help and direct someone. If it's not something we can do, we'll find the best avenue for anyone who's in need of victim services.
Wonderful. And we will make sure all of those resources are in this chat below. Well, thank you so much, Rob, for spending some time with me today and sharing about that specific case, but also just the importance of lawyers in the system and that they can and do make such a significant difference. So thank you for the work that you do.
Right. And thank you for having us. And thank you for everything that NCVLI has done in the past and is going to keep doing.
Awesome. Well, to learn more about the National Crime Victim Law Institute and our RISE projects and ways that you can help activate victims' rights, please go to ncvli.org today and learn more. And we will see you back here next month on the third Wednesday. Thank you. And until then, have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.